presentations, am I right? They're just something most of us got to deal with at some point.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think we all want them to really hit home, like leave a mark.
For sure.
And I'm starting to think visual cues are what can really make that happen.
They really can. It's interesting how many people don't realize how important visuals are.
Yeah, it's like more than just making things look nice, right?
Way more. They can actually be powerful tools, like guiding your audience's attention or making it easier to understand things. And that can lead to a really memorable message.
I'll be honest, I used to think visual cues were just kind of like the icing on the cake, Make it pretty.
I get that.
But I'm realizing there's so much more to it.
There really is. Visuals are a core part of communication when you think about it. I mean, our brains process visuals way faster than text, something like 60,000 times faster.
Wow, 60,000 times.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I guess that's why a powerful image can stick with you even after you've forgotten what was being said.
Right. It's like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Seriously, in this case, it's more like a picture is worth 1,000 bullet points.
Definitely. Plus, there's actual science behind it. Studies show that if you pair visuals with information, people remember it better.
Okay, you've convinced me. Visuals are important. So what kind of visual cues should we be using for presentations?
Sure.
I know they're the obvious ones like color and images, but what else?
Well, let's start with color.
Okay.
It's a really powerful tool, but you have to use it carefully. Have you ever noticed how certain colors just make you feel a certain way?
Oh, totally. I've definitely been in presentations where the color choices were just distracting, like way too many bright colors or shades that clash.
I know what you mean.
It's like sensory overload.
It is. It's all about color psychology. Blue, for instance, often makes people think of trust and stability, which is why lots of companies use it for branding.
Makes sense.
Red can signal urgency or even danger.
So maybe neon green and hot pink aren't the best choices for my next financial presentation.
Probably not, unless you're going for a very specific look. But the key here is consistency. A limited color palette that fits your message and feels harmonious makes a big difference.
Got it. Consistency is key. What about icons? I love a good icon.
Me too.
They're like little visual shortcuts.
Yeah, like a light bulb for an idea, a gear for a process, a lock for security, things like that. Icons can get a lot of information across quickly.
They really can.
But just like with color, less is more. Too many icons will clutter your slides and distract from what you're saying.
You're right. It's about picking the right ones and using them strategically. I've seen presentations where like every other word was replaced with an icon, and it's just confusing.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about balance. You want your icons to help your message, not overpower it.
Absolutely. So we've got color, icons. What about things like arrows and lines? I've always found those kind of tough to use well.
They can be tricky.
Yeah.
But they're really good for guiding your audience's eyes and showing how ideas connect. Think of them like visual connectors.
Oh, visual connectors. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So like you could use an arrow to highlight something important on a chart
Exactly.
or show how a process flows.
Exactly. Or you could use lines to make visual groups or separate different parts of your presentation. Basically, you're creating visual cues to make information easier to take in.
Like a roadmap for your audience's eyes. Okay, speaking of making things easy to take in, what about images? I love a good image.
Oh, absolutely. Images are amazing for telling stories.
Yeah.
And they can connect with your audience on a deeper level.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Be careful with those generic stock photos, like the cheesy images of people shaking hands.
Oh, you mean the ones that look like they're from a corporate Time Warp?
Exactly. You want images that feel real and relatable and that actually connect to what you're saying.
For sure. I've definitely noticed that presentations with strong images are the ones I remember best.
Yeah.
Like they become little anchors for the information.
Right. And they do more than just look nice. A relevant image can actually help people understand and remember an idea better.
Interesting. Okay, so color, icons, arrows, images. What about typography? Is that really a visual cue? I mean, I know some people are really into fonts, but I never thought it was that important.
Oh, it totally is.
Really?
The fonts you choose, how big or small they are, the style, it all affects how your message comes across.
Wow, I'm starting to see how every detail matters when you're trying to make a presentation impactful. It's like a symphony of visual elements.
Exactly. Think about it. A big, bold heading shows that something's important. A smaller, lighter font might be for supporting details. And different font styles can create different moods. It's about creating a visual hierarchy that guides your audience's eyes to the key points.
Okay, so I shouldn't just be using the default font for my entire presentation then.
Well, unless the default font perfectly matches your message and brand, it's probably good to explore some other options. There are tons of fonts out there, each with its own unique feel.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed. There's so much to consider, but I'm also excited. It's like I've unlocked a whole new level of presentation design.
Yeah.
What about charts and graphs? Those are definitely visual, but they can sometimes be more confusing than helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Charts and graphs are super important for showing data clearly, but I think we've all seen presentations where the charts were just too complicated or just plain ugly.
Ugh, yes. Those 3D pie charts with the exploding slices, I'm getting a headache just thinking about them.
The key with charts and graphs is to focus on being clear and simple. Pick the right type of chart for your data, keep it clean, and label everything clearly so people can immediately understand the information.
So basically, skip the fancy effects and make the data easy to understand.
Pretty much.
Got it. Wow, this has been really eye-opening. I'm already thinking about how I can use all this in my next presentation. What are some good practices for putting it all together?
That's a great question. We'll get into that more in the next part of our conversation. But for now, just remember that consistency is key. All your visuals should have a unified look and feel throughout the entire presentation.
Makes sense. That'll make it feel more polished and professional, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess it'll also help the audience follow along more easily.
Exactly. We'll be back in just a moment to talk more about best practices and tips for using visual cues to really grab your audience's attention, so stay tuned.
I will.
It's amazing how visual cues can subtly shape how your message comes across.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, like, even just changing the font or color can actually affect how people understand the information.
Totally. Think about it. A bold sans serif font like Arial or Helvetica projects a sense of confidence or like modernity.
Yeah. And then a more elegant script font could be seen as like creative or whimsical even.
Exactly. It's all about choosing fonts that match the tone and purpose of your presentation. Visual cues are kind of like nonverbal communication,
Oh, that's a great point.
right?
It's like dressing for the occasion, but for your slides.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about a common presentation pitfall. Death by PowerPoint.
Ugh, yes.
You know.
Those presentations with endless bullet points and walls of text.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced that soul-crushing boredom at some point.
Oh, for sure. But visual cues can actually be the antidote to that.
Really?
Yeah, because by adding images, icons, and other visual elements, you break up the monotony and keep your audience engaged.
So it's like creating a visual rhythm, a flow that keeps people's eyes moving and their minds active.
Exactly. You want to guide their attention, create visual interest, and keep them from getting overwhelmed or zoning out.
It's like the difference between reading a dense textbook and like a visually engaging magazine article.
I like that analogy, and
Right.
this becomes even more important when you're presenting complex information or data.
Right, because a well-designed chart or graph can make a huge difference in helping people understand the numbers.
For sure. It's about taking raw data and making it meaningful and memorable. Visual cues can help highlight trends, patterns, and key takeaways.
So instead of just throwing numbers at people, we're giving them a visual story.
Exactly. And a story is always more engaging than a spreadsheet. Now, speaking of storytelling, that's another area where visual cues can really shine.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I'm all ears. How can we use visuals to make our presentations better stories?
Well, think about how visual elements can help you create a narrative arc. You can use images to set the scene, icons to represent characters or concepts, and arrows to show the progression of events.
So it's like creating a visual storyboard for your presentation.
Exactly. And that visual structure can make your message more compelling and easier to follow. It's like giving your audience a mental map to navigate your ideas.
I'm starting to see how visual cues can take a presentation from good to great. It's like going to that next level.
Yeah, and the best part is it doesn't have to be complicated. Even small, thoughtful changes can have a big impact.
So for our listeners who are ready to try this out, what are some simple things they can start doing today to improve their use of visual cues?
Well, start by taking a close look at your current presentations and ask yourself, are you using too much text? Are your slides cluttered? Are your visuals consistent and actually serving a purpose? Are they really supporting your message?
It's like doing a visual audit,
Yeah,
like a checkup to see what's working and what needs improvement.
exactly. And then start playing around with different types of visual cues. Try using more images, icons, and charts. Experiment with color and typography. See what resonates with you and your audience.
Okay.
And always remember, it's about serving the message, not just adding visuals for no reason.
Right.
Every visual element should have a clear purpose and contribute to the overall story.
Got it.
Think of them as strategic tools in your storytelling arsenal.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for creating presentations.
That's awesome to hear. And remember, the more you practice and experiment, the more confident you'll become with using visual cues effectively.
For sure. This conversation has been so insightful. It's like you've demystified the whole art of visual cues. I'm excited to put all this into practice.
I'm glad to hear that. I think we've reached a good stopping point for now. But don't worry, we'll be back soon to finish our exploration of visual cues and give you some final inspiring thoughts.
Can't wait. See you soon. All right, we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into visual cues and presentations.
Yeah, it's been a pretty fascinating journey, exploring the psychology of color, the power of icons, all that stuff.
I feel like we've discovered this whole secret world inside presentations where every visual element can actually make a difference.
Yeah, it really shows you how visual cues aren't just decoration. They're key for communication, clarity, making a connection.
They can turn a presentation from just information
Mhm.
into a real experience that people remember.
Exactly. Think back to a presentation that really stuck with you, one that left a mark. What made it so good? Chances are it wasn't just the words, but how those words were brought to life visually.
You're right. It's like the visuals gave the information a structure, made it easier to grasp and remember.
That's it. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a challenge. Next time you're putting together a presentation, don't just focus on what you're saying. Think about how you can use visuals to elevate your message, grab your audience, and make your ideas really resonate.
It's about using visuals to create something truly special.
That's a great way to put it. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our exploration into the world of visual cues.
It's been amazing. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you've learned something new and feel inspired to create presentations that truly captivate your audience. Until next time.